Hello adventurers, my name is Guildmaster Chance and thank you for sitting in on one of our lessons. Today we're going to be going over Danbornia, at least a brief history on the continent, its people, and various other factors that may be relevant to you. I've been considering giving this lesson for quite some time now, and since my return from my hiatus, I feel like it's particularly necessary, especially since this is the point where you're going to start venturing into the world. In addition, my good friend Juice over at the Master the Game YouTube channel issued a 30-day world building challenge, and this is my entry in that, in a manner of speaking. So I hope you all enjoy and feel free to check out his channel for his world as well. Now let's dive in by first taking a look at the Dambornian Map. Danbornia is for the most part a single large continent. This provides many advantages as trading is quite easy and resources are usually quite accessible from region to region. In terms of the overall layout, Danbornia is actually subdivided into several different ruling areas. These areas will be discussed a little bit later on when we talk about government structure, but they are all quite wide and varied in their own rights. Natural rivers, lakes, and creeks permeate the land. Some are endowed with magic, some are home to other creatures, and some are just normal bodies of water. It is one of those things where it's always best to check beforehand. Mountainous terrain also permeates the land, however, for the most part, Danbornia is comprised of grasslands and forests. The most relevant location to you as an adventurer and member of the guild is right in the center, marked by the purple arrow. That is where the guild's general zone is located. The guild proper exists on a quasi-dimension of sorts, and as a result doesn't have a particular physical location, however it does reside within that general area. And as a result of the Adventurer Provision Proclamation, the guild is allowed to remain autonomous within its zone, and some consider it to be a neutral territory, while others view it as a separate entity all to its own. We will actually be discussing the Adventurer Provision Proclamation a little bit later on, or at the very least brushing on its contents, so don't worry about that too much yet. Now that we've established the rough lay of the land for Danbornia, let's take a look at its early days. The first Danbornians struggled greatly with the inhospitable environment. During the country's infancy, intense magical fluctuations and monsters were a constant threat. When word of the terrain reached the Sword Coast, adventurers were quick to embark in search of experience. There were several notable adventurers that were able to strike deals and pacts with various magical communities. These agreements, throughout time, ended up creating an ideal ecosystem for sentient magical beings. And of course, through extension, humans alike. Now let's move on to the resources of Danbornia. Although it is hard for the modern-day youth to believe, Danbornia was almost completely barren for much of its early history. There are many theories as to why, however, most are convinced that the raw magical energies or native monsters were to blame. It wasn't until the magical agreements were stricken that the environment started to change. Now Danbornia is considered by many scholars to be the most resource-dense continent on the material plane. However, there are some who view the country with contempt, claiming that the prosperity of Danbornia is unnatural or in some cases outright evil. Speaking on the youth of Danbornia, let's take a look at their races and how the races of Danbornia have developed throughout time. Due to the magical and interdimensional connections entrenched into the continent, races are wide and varied. It is also not uncommon for many exotic creatures to seek refuge within the self-sufficient country. This highly diverse social structure, along with the saturation of natural magics, have led to the creation of unique races. Kinder and hag spawn being some of the most notable examples. However, more are being discovered on a regular basis. Now let's talk about the culture of Danbornia. Cultures vary significantly by region. The central areas of the continent are sparsely populated and regularly visited by feral beasts. As a result, the people are hardy and take joy in the simpler pleasures. The creatures in rural areas are usually quite feral and rarely able to communicate. However, the countryside is ideal for creatures who wish to be left alone. As a result, many of them do dwell there in secret. As you near the coast, the population dramatically rises, and the people become more lively and eccentric. Thriving metropolises dot the coast, ranging from feudal castles to technological marvels. The cities make ideal dens for more charismatic creatures, many taking honest occupations while others have pursued less than honest professions. Based on the region, such creatures may or may not be viewed favorably based on that region's and populace's experience with them. Now let's speak on the subject of religion. Until the collapse occurred, religion was rarely discussed. However, in the post-collapse Dambornia, many have felt the need to seek out a higher power. The collapse event also shook most traditional religions to their foundations. This scenario led to the formation of the Church of Joy, the Holy Theocracy, and the Guild. These groups served as a way to blanket worship. They are chaotic, lawful, and personal ideals respectively. Most of the rural citizens are unaffected by the dealings of the organizations, only relying on them for quests and paying their taxes when due. However, in the urban areas, organizations can have huge sway over the populace. Depending on circumstances, they can either be viewed as divine vessels or infernal corruptors. As a quick aside, we will be doing a separate lesson on the collapse. Many in the Discord community are already aware of it. However, to those viewing on YouTube or those of you that are relatively new, fear not, such a video will come out shortly. Now let's move on to the government structure of Danbornia. Danbornia lacks a centralized government. Instead, each region is responsible for managing their own affairs. There are, however, many agreements and treaties between each region. The central unifying document for the country is referred to as the Adventurer Provision Proclamation, which outlines the rules for the three central organizations. Most of the legislative body is aimed at regulating the groups themselves. However, the most relevant sections form a social contract with the citizenry. In simplest form, the citizens pay a tax that is sent to a quasi-dimensional space. Those funds are paid out to the various groups as they complete quests. Magic facilitates almost all of the logistical challenges. Using this form of government, the Dambornians have been able to live a relatively peaceful life in conjunction with many of the technologies available to them. That being said, let's take a look at said relevant technologies. While each region has their own unique technologies, some are universal throughout the continent itself. Chief among these are teleportation circles and job boards. Teleportation circles are commonly used by adventurers, guards, and various officials to traverse the continent in an instant. The system does have restrictions, however. The most notable is it is not a viable way to transport large volumes of goods. As a result, traveling traders do quite well financially, so long as they can stomach the risk. Job boards are magical terminals in most towns and cities. Citizens can use these terminals to issue a quest. Once a quest is issued, it appears within every organization. Should an organization accept the quest, they will gain the rights to it and must complete it forthwith. A failure to complete a quest will result in harsh consequences for the organization in question. As such, different organizations have gone about assigning quests in different ways. The guild allows the individual guild masters to accept various quests on their own accord, where the Holy Theocracy only selects a handful of jobs that they deem relevant to their cause, and the Church of Joy is a little bit of a mystery. Nobody really knows, and to be honest, most of the members don't know themselves. However, it is indicated that there is some central guiding force, at least on some level, hopefully. That concludes our lesson on the brief history of Danbornia. There will be subsequent lessons on each individual region and the differences distinguishing them, and on each of the towns, settlements, and cities as well, so do keep an eye out for those. If you have any questions on Danbornia as a whole, please feel free to ask them down below, and I will get to them as soon as I am able. If you'd like to give this video a quick like and of course subscribe, you may gain access to 5 hero or villain points of your choice and assign them to your character towards leveling up. Now let's move on to some adventurers of note. I want to give a huge thank you to Tristan, also known as Nix, Rev Sinner, also known as Wesley Roberts, and AJ Vavance, also known as Kirk Savaikis. If you'd like to join our community or become an adventurer of note yourself, please check out our Discord or our Patreon link down beneath. That being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, happy adventuring.